No, I don't. I really didn't keep anything, man. I got my rookie jersey with the Lakers, my sweatsuit from the Lakers. I may have one or two Indiana jerseys, but I think the most important thing I did was that all my sons, the original Vince Carter rookie jersey, I got each one of them. So,
Sweet.
but I mean, I got some small stuff, but
Yeah.
um,
I'm pretty sure you got some good stories.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. That's what I like about you, Butch. You're honest. Yeah, this is episode 19 of the Offline Podcast. Hey, show some love by hitting that like button. Hey, subscribe and join our team. Don't forget to hit that bell so you get all our podcast alerts. Hey, we welcome comments and questions. So visit theofflinepodcast.com. And like I said, today is episode 19, which is pretty amazing that we started this thing and now we're on 19. So today's guest is a guy who went to Middletown High School. He was McDonald All-American. He was Player of the Year in Ohio. We're talking about basketball. We're not talking about football, baseball. He went to Indiana University. He was co-captain his senior year, and he was on a Big Ten championship team. He was drafted by the LA Lakers in the second round. Spent 6 years as a player and 14 coaching. That's high school, college, and the pros all combined. And he also was the first person to ever be Coach of the Year and Player of the Year in the state of Ohio. Hey, I want to welcome to the podcast, Butch Carter. Butch, how you doing?
I'm good, John. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate the invite.
Thanks for coming on, dude. So, Butch, how was it in growing up in Middletown, Ohio, being, I guess, the central of Mr. Basketball of Ohio?
Well, it was interesting times. We had grown up in Troy, Ohio, and then there was some coincidence between my fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade team did not lose a game, and we won a tournament in the ninth grade. The next thing I knew, my mom had a new job in Middletown. So,
is that right?
Yeah, we matriculated up I-75 south in Middletown, and the integration in Middletown was tough. Middletown is a segregated community through de facto segregation, and the south side of Middletown is predominantly black. Middletown's general population came from the south to take the jobs in Armco Steel, and we weren't we weren't someone they knew. So everything that we got out of Middletown, we had to earn. There were some really tough days playing in the park in Douglas Park, in Barnett's Park, but we earned our way. At Middletown, I didn't play football my sophomore year. Middletown High School was a 3-year high school, 10, 11, and 12. And but I wanted to focus on basketball. Played football my junior and senior year, was all Ohio wide receiver or tight end, in football, and was Ohio Player of the Year. But really enjoyed what Middletown gave me from a compete standpoint. It brought a deeper part of me out, and it's really what sustained me being a good person and understanding the mental and the physical competition requirements that sports requires. So I'm grateful for my time at Middletown.
Right. So you were the oldest of how many kids?
7. Oldest of 7.
And of course, one of your famous little brothers is Chris Carter.
Well, he used to be my little brother. Now I'm his brother. So I always tell people, John, he was a hell of a little brother, and we've always had it's more of an adult relationship since he was young, since I was the oldest man in the house. But we've always had a great relationship and true respect for each other. And he learned to compete by watching me compete when we went to Middletown and the wars I went through at the community center and out at Douglas Park. You know, at that time, in the mid 70s, Middletown was the mecca for basketball in Southwestern Ohio. So on a Sunday, you would have the University of Cincinnati basketball players, the University of Dayton basketball players, the Miami of Ohio basketball players. So, you know, I'd played so much against college players that playing a high school basketball game was nothing for me. You know, I was down in Cincinnati. My best friend, Doug Jemison, his older brother, Jesse Jemison, played for the University of Cincinnati. So we were at a lot of Cincinnati games. We were there playing in the summer. Mike Artis, former Bearcat, is still a longtime friend. But those guys were good, and they'd come to Middletown. We'd play tournaments, and they would pair up and stay with the local guys in our homes. And it was just a great situation for a young athlete in my situation, because they never taught me anything wrong. They were I learned to respect them, and they mentored me in the right way.
So you go to Indiana. How do you end up in Indiana? Did Ohio State recruit you hard or no?
Ohio State recruited me hard, but not hard enough. So on our unofficial visit, me and Todd Bell went together, and they put us in the last row of the horseshoe. And I didn't think, as good as Todd was in football and as good as I was in basketball, that we should have got two seats better than the last row in the horseshoe in the end zone. And the fact that when I did graduate and was making a decision, Fred Taylor resigned and they brought in Eldon Miller, and I didn't know Eldon Miller. But for me, I thought Ohio State was too big of a campus for me. I did not want to go to a campus where all the bars ran right through the middle of campus. I also wanted to go somewhere where they were historically graduating their players. And there were different times for me at Indiana, but the reason I went there was that they were graduating their players. John, I really wanted to go to Louisville, but when we got down there in Louisville and played in the Derby tournament, Denny Crum hired Wade Houston, so that meant he was going to get Darrell Griffin and Bobby Turner. So me and those two players played the same position, but my Uncle Larry worked at the Ford plant in Louisville, so I was down there sometimes in the summer, got to play in a dirt bowl, really loved the environment down in Louisville, but there was just nowhere for me to play after they signed Wade Houston.
So you got hurt your first 2 years?
Yeah, I break my fifth metatarsal the day before the first practice as a freshman, and it really set me back because they put you in a hard cast, and I was having problems with my Achilles, and really those first 2 years I had a tough time getting down in a defensive stance with my Achilles and staying there, and it was a reckoning for me because I went to college. I never planned on being a professional player, never thought about it. I went to college to get the free education and graduate. But then all of a sudden, there was a come to Jesus meeting between the mentor that I had at Indiana was George Talaferro and his wife, Vi. And everybody thinks that George is the one that kicked me in the butt, but it was Mrs. Talaferro that told me that there was a deeper part of why I was supposed to be at Indiana, and I was brought there to play. And but it took me about 18 months to come back from breaking that fifth metatarsal. It healed on its own. I was one of the few people in the country that had healed on its own. But the fact that I was in a regular hard cast really limited what I could do with my Achilles and my calf muscle.
Right. So you played for Bobby Knight. I know that was kind of a love or hate relationship, but did you learn anything that you passed on as far as to your players?
I mean, you have to put up with Coach Knight's bad days at the office, and he had lots of them, right? So the reality was that I went there because the university gave me something greater than him.
Right.
And I never lost track of that. And at times he didn't like that. And I told him he could say to me, do to me whatever he wanted. As long as he didn't say anything about my mother, we were going to be fine. But I wasn't quitting. I wasn't leaving the university. That university, Indiana, I owe so much to. And the story, John, is that as a first-time graduate in my family, I go there in '76. I graduate in '80, and since that time, there's been 21 of my relatives, sons, nieces, nephews, cousins, half brothers, that have gone to college, and 16 of them have graduated. And my youngest son, Josh, will be the 17th. So education is the threshold that I had set. And of those 16 that have graduated, I'm very proud to say that the second person to graduate was my mother. She went back to school and got an undergraduate degree in education from Miami of Ohio, and then went on and pursued a master's at Ohio State.
Right. How proud of you when she went back to school?
I was proud because in her coming over to watch me play, she really got to see how people lived who had a college education. Okay. And I was doing the research for a family reunion we were going to have May of when the pandemic started. And what I learned was that in her era, a lot of females got pregnant, 16, 17-year-old, and dropped out of school. But my mom was a great student from the standpoint of she went back, John, not at night. She went back full time during the day at 42 or 43 years old, and went back into high school, normal classes and with regular students, and got straight A's. Like I said, she's very bright, but the light bulb went off with her and I think she was also angry because she felt that maybe I was taking advantage of telling people what to do because I was the only educated one in the family. So we laugh about that all the time. But I think she was angry she wanted me to stop telling her what to do. So.
No, but I tell you that takes some courage, but I think it's a real humble person to go back and do something like that.
Well, again, I think it set the tone for everybody else, because from that point on, she understood what my vision was for the family, that it was a lot more than just playing sports. And there's no desire that any of the kids have to play sports. That chapter's already been written very well in our family, both in football and basketball. But our nieces and nephews and our kids have graduated in universities all over the country, and that's what we're extremely proud in. And I think that should be the goal going forward for generations. But someone had to start it, and that was my main focus on picking a school to go to, that I wanted to go to one that had a clean history of graduating their players. And I graduated from the School of Business. I did not get a general studies degree. I went there and actually learned something and got my priorities straight, and it's really delivered for me the rest of my life.
Right. So then you get drafted, and you go from a small little city town. Now I can't even call that a city. It's a little town.
Yeah.
Then you go to the big city of LA.
Right.
So how big of a difference was that?
What's your favorite ice cream?
The butter pecan.
It's like getting a bucket of butter pecan delivered to you every day. Going from Bloomington, Indiana to the world champion LA Lakers. It was, I think, outside of my kids graduating, it was the most invigorating thing that has ever happened to me. In LA, my agent was Fred Slaughter. Fred Slaughter was the starting center on John Wooden's first NCAA championship team. He was from Kansas, Midwestern guy. Big Fred and I got along great. I spent many an afternoon at his house being mentored by him on the city, learned to appreciate the beaches, Santa Monica, Um, it was just a great place. It was a great place for me, and to be a part of a team that already won a world championship. To watch the leadership capabilities of Magic Johnson, um, how Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was later in his playing career and circumvented his leadership to Magic. It was just it was a great place. If you look at my rookie picture of the '80 Lakers, I think there's 6 or 7 Hall of Famers on the team.
Yeah.
Right? Jerry West, GM, assistant GM. Bill Sharman was the GM. Pat Riley, Kareem, Jamal, Magic. Um, Norm Nixon was just an awesome talent. I thought Kyle Macy was a good basketball player until I seen what Norm Nixon did to him in a game in Phoenix the first week of the season, the rookie season. And that Laker team really helped me understand what it meant to be a great team, and it taught me how to coach a great team.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that great players want to be coached. They want direction. They want organization, so they can go do their thing. But that Laker team was awesome, and they did some things that I wasn't used to at Indiana, but it was never to the detriment of the team. They could have a good time and go out and beat the snot out of the team. And
right. They party just as hard as they play.
Well, I mean, you could be in the locker room, John, and you know, when the coach calls everybody to look at the board and they're sitting there eating popcorn. I mean, they're sitting there eating popcorn like they were a fan, and then they'd go out there and roast guys.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it was they were brutal about winning, and that's how I learned. As you know, I always wanted to be a coach. And that's how I learned that, you know, like the talented guys are who you want. You know, guys complain, you know, this guy can't do this. Well, most of the time, what the kid can't do, the coach can't teach him. That's why the kid's failing. You know, it's the same thing in your business, you know. Some young guys come in and fail because no one ever teaches them the proper technique.
No, they don't. They're so far off. And you can see that in college, and they have a hard time when they get to the pros, because those guys are all about their technique and using the leverage and using with their experience.
Right. And that's what, you know, that's what I saw every day. And it was, you know, people ask me, you know, what about Magic Johnson? I said, Magic Johnson was the MVP of the '80 World Champion where they beat Philadelphia. We had to run a mile in Palm Springs about 1 o'clock after the first practice, and I got a non-guaranteed contract, and I can't catch him. I cannot catch him. And 3 nights before then, it was Magic called all of his rookies over in the hotel and said, I'm going to pick you guys up 8 o'clock. He picks us up in limos, takes us out to dinner, takes us out on the town, makes sure we're back at the hotel at 1 o'clock and ready to catch the vans in the morning to go to Palm Springs. I mean, he's the most awesome leader I've ever been around in my life.
Right.
And people never understood that about him. They thought it was a smile, but man, it was about with Juke, when we call him, it was about the work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
He was just so big on the work ethic.
Right. So describe Pat Riley's coaching style.
Rouse is a monster, man. Rouse doesn't care how talented you are. You're going to get in there and do the work. And I commend him for his approach. I learned from Riles that great players do want to be coached. The relationship Magic has with Riley goes directly back to Riles was never afraid to tell Magic when he was wrong. But Riles also made sure that he knew that Magic was wrong.
Right.
Riley's style, the style of a coach that when you're coaching great players, is that you make sure that the table is set by all the least talented players so that the most talented players can do their thing. The most talented players need a core support group,
mm-hmm.
and great teams fall apart when not the good players fail, but when the players who aren't as talented, they start failing and missing their assignments. And Riley always set the table so that everybody knew what they were supposed to be doing. You were there early. You worked hard. I can remember practices where, I got stitches, went in, got stitched up, came back, and that was the expectation of Pat. But, but I seen Magic get stitches the same practice, come back in, and we went right at it. And that night, Magic had a chef that would come in. He'd call the rookies, me and Alan Hardy, say, hey, it's time to eat. And I said, hey, you sure? Because he and I got in it today. And he said, hey, he doesn't care anything about that. It's time to eat. So like I said, there were just so many things on the court and off the court where he set the table.
Mm-hmm.
He was not a jealous person at all. And some stars get to where they get to be picky, but Buck was never like that. He was just sincere. He was committed to his trade and overly committed to his trade, but not to where he wanted to take advantage of someone else.
Right. I mean, you see a lot of these guys, these what we call them, I guess, prima donnas.
Yes.
Who the world revolves around them. I mean, I think it takes away from the team.
Well, most guys, the advantage of coaching is most guys don't know how to put together a team, John, in my opinion. Everywhere I've been, I've got one major rule. We are going to do everything in year one that gets taken care of so that we don't have to address it in year two. So coaches will let players carry bad habits into year two.
Right.
And you can't do it. And if you look at my track record in year two, my teams have always been really, really good. But it's because we dealt, and I always say, if I get 2 summers to coach my players through the individual instructors and player development, then we'll be pretty good in the second year. But it's from, I was fortunate. I played for Bob Knight. I played for Pat Riley. I played for Hubie Brown. I played for some really good guys. And then I was able to understand how you take a team and put it together. Patino was an assistant in New York when Hubie was there. But most guys miss it because they don't set an environment that, look, when we're in this building, all right, everybody has to do their work. Right. And everyone has to be responsible. And there's a higher level of responsibility when you're in this building than anything you do in your life outside of your family and your faith.
Mm-hmm. So you're doing some coaching. So explain that. What are you doing?
Well, the NBA called me 6 years ago, and they have a program for former NBA players that want to go into coaching. It's called the NBA Assistant Coaches Program. And so currently I head that program. I have an assistant and 2 other people that help. But basically what I did is I turned the whole program upside down. I believe that coaches, especially minority coaches, fail brutally because they don't understand how to organize corrective actions.
Right.
So what I did is I went away from player development. I went away from them looking good on the court, and I put them in the video room. So my success as a pro head coach was that I didn't have to wait for a video coordinator to break my video down. I can break it down myself. So when we went over to the office and got on the treadmill at 5 o'clock the next morning, when the guys start coming in, the practice schedule was in their chair in front of their locker. They knew what the expectation was. It was well defined and where we failed. There would be a video clip for them individually if there was a part of the game in which they did not execute. That video was edited so that I would have a voiceover on my perception of how we clean it up. So my goal was to elevate them mentally. By the time they got on the court, they were mentally ready to move things forward and make the corrective action. So the problem with most coaches is they don't watch the film that night. They go to practice the next day and they walk in and say to the assistant coach, what do you guys want to do today? And so what I did with the assistant coaches program was not only did I turn it to a video scouting, the more fundamental approach, I basically put all the classes online. So through the online teaching during the pandemic, the whole NBA was shut down, but our program was not shut down. So I was told the day that the guy who was over our program, uh, he was he was he got a promotion, a very large promotion, um, but he was very proud. He felt that I think it's an elite program now. And let me give you an example. So the program gets 2 jobs for as interns in the NBA G League. The last 4 years, we've averaged 6 players hired as a third assistant in the G League, beside the internships.
Okay.
So we teach them. I teach them the video breakdown, the corrective actions, and then I teach them how to win the interview. Where tons of guys fail, they go in, they don't understand, and it goes back to a simple principle. In 1998, I developed the first analytical model they used in basketball, where I determined that half of the NBA games are lost, so 1,230. 1,230. So we don't work on anything on what losing teams do. And coaches fail themselves and they fail the kids and their families because they go in and they practice things in which losing teams do. And we go in and practice things that beat winning teams. And everything that's from design of practice plans, our approach to shoot around, practicing timeouts, coming out of timeouts. If you win the first and third quarter, in my model back in 98, you won 68% of your games. In the day's NBA, you win 85% of your games in the playoffs if you win the first and third quarter, and you win 80% of your games in the regular season if you win the first and third quarter. Most analytical models, unlike mine, in my analytical model, I have 3 officials and 2 assistant coaches, because any good coach is always coaching against another head coach and the assistant that has the scout for that game. But the program, NBA assistant coaches program, I had a call with them earlier today. We're going to start up in March. And so regardless of what the league is doing or how many games they're going to play, they feel that what we're giving these young coaches, most of them are minority coaches, we're giving them something that is really being successful for them. So successful that I had one of my former players, Antonio Davis, called me and said, "Butch, I got a young man that I really would like to get in your program." And he wasn't allowed because he'd only played in college. So we gave him observer status. And 30 days ago, the Milwaukee Bucks hired him as the video coordinator.
Right. So these Butch, these are former players?
These are former players. These are former players. And then last year I decided I was going to take 2 people and give them observer status, that they were not former players in the NBA, but these guys are former players in college, and teach them the same principles of the analytics behind how you build your program only against winning teams. And so far that has been very successful. I don't know who the 2 candidates will be this year. It's a lot of hard work, but I always try to tell the players that there's a right way to be selfish. I learned it from being around Magic Johnson, and that Magic worked hard to make himself prepared for great moments. And young people forget to be selfish about the right things, taking care of themselves, putting the time in now so they can feed their family later. And I watch a lot of good coaches just fail. You know, how do I come? I walked out of the NBA and became the head coach of Middletown High School 90 days later. And 18 months after that, I was high school coach of the year in Southwestern Ohio. And the reality was that, you know, we were just really good at accepting that there are good teams out there, but we're practicing every day only to beat the good teams. The bad teams, all you can do is shot fake. They're going to jump in there, you jump into them and shoot 30 free throws and win the game. It's real simple.
So what, I kind of lost my thought here. That was some good stuff, Butch.
Well, I mean, it's no different than, I mean, you live in the Cincinnati area. I grew up, and we haven't loved the Cincinnati Bengals since Paul Brown was coaching. So when you're playing with the Steelers, how much time did Coach?
It wasn't any love. It wasn't any love over there. They wanted to kick our ass, and we wanted to kick their ass. So
right,
it was pretty simple.
But I mean, you didn't spend a whole lot of time worrying about bad teams. The issue was, let's get this out of the way so we can get to where we want to go.
Right, but I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. You really don't worry about the bad teams because it's going to happen.
Right.
But you better prepare yourself for those good teams because you can get destroyed.
Yeah, because the whole mindset is against good teams is you can't let the game get away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And but when you don't practice every day and preparing to play against good teams, then you're going to create some problems because against good teams, what I tell the players is that anything can happen, and so we pride ourselves on we're going to come out of the locker room and try to get things done immediately. As a basketball coach, I would never start my 5 best players. At Middletown, I had a kid named Greg Derbyshire that was one of my 5 best players, but I made him the 6th man. He ended up being our 2nd or 3rd leading scorer because he'd come off the bench and just kill people because they weren't prepared for him. So it's, you learn that what's really important, and the sooner a coach can transfer that over to his players, man, coaching gets a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember games in Middletown and in the NBA where I'm just sitting there looking at my watch like, man, I'll be glad when this thing's over with.
That's how it was out in San Diego. Let's get out of here.
But the most empowering thing for a coach is when the young men that you are responsible for training go out and handle their business, because they learn is that it's their life that they're taking responsibility for, and the perception of being a winner in life has some extra benefits that could last you a lifetime.
Right. I know when I was with Steelers and Coach Carter came in, his whole philosophy was the game doesn't start till you get punched in the mouth. And once you get punched in the mouth, we're going to see what you're made of.
Well, I mean, that's true. My goal, I think, if you go back and look at the Cincinnati Enquirer wrote an article and called my Middletown team the Georgetown of high school basketball in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I thought it was a little rude. But basically, I had taught those kids that the winning teams in southwestern Ohio at that time were predominantly the Catholic schools.
Right.
And we were not going to get punched in the mouth by a Catholic school and then have to play against them and 3 officials. And so we were very aggressive about winning games and being good on the road. But it's just the reality. And any good coach, and I'll say this again, any good coach needs to transfer the reality of human nature and talent and get ahead of it for his young people to be successful. And I think that's been the most important thing I've done.
Right. But people don't understand, when you're playing on the road, there's a different focus. But you got to win those road games.
Yeah, you've got to establish, because in basketball, it's even more important, John, because to get to wherever you want to go in the state tournament or the NCAA tournament, it's all a third-party venue.
Right.
Right? It's a third-party venue. And in football, you want to be you prefer to be 1 so that you get the bye, right? And 2, it's just you need the rest, So it really goes to being consistent. And, you were fortunate enough to play in an organization that professional consistency in winning really came right down through the owner. The Rooney family, they set the tone. And I laugh at times on your $100 dinner check. That's one of the best ones I've heard. So, but I mean, to me, it was always about invigorating my guys, and I love to take young people and what I call chop off the top of their head and just pour all this confidence into them and drive them to empower themselves to control their own destiny. And for me,
but I think that the difference between winning and losing is confidence.
That's correct.
Because that confidence takes you to that next level. But if you have no confidence, then you're gonna go out there and just be like, another day. Can't wait to get hell off this court or this field.
See, John, you understand when you get to the pros beyond college, when you get to the pros, you understand, man, the good Lord put some talent in some people.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Right? I mean, like I'm thinking I'm a pretty good player playing a Big Ten. I played against Magic, and the first time I stick my head in the huddle, I'm looking at Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jamal Wilkes, Norm Nixon. Never heard of this little guy from Duquesne. All right, unbelievable athlete. And then there's this dude, dark as this sweater I got on, that he can guard anybody named Michael Cooper. Never heard of him. So, the one thing that huddle did for me was like, you have to prepare for something that you don't know, but it's coming.
Right.
And in professional sports, the gift is broader because you got more players, more athletes involved. And I can't imagine the kind of athletes that you had to deal with. Just the experience of being around John Randall with the Vikings. And I couldn't imagine what it was like to have to be an offensive line.
He's something else off the field.
Okay.
On the field, he's a to put it to you nice.
Yeah.
He's one of those wind-up toys.
Okay.
That somebody forgot to push the off button.
No, I mean Johnny. I asked Chris. I said, "Hey, what's he like to get with?" He said, "Who? The muscle?" I said, "What do you mean the muscle? And that's a human muscle." And so I said, "So he's one of those guys that's got the gift." Chris said, "Butch, he stood in line twice."
And he probably stood there a third time, but he's still in line. He's still in line.
He was. I just. It was. That was a different experience. Also, being able to. I did not like going to watch Chris play because my mindset was that we had made it as athletes, and so the money was important in what it did economically for a bunch of us. But I just didn't want to see him get hurt, and. I'll tell you the story where the Vikings are playing at San Francisco, and the Vikes throw a pick, and Ronnie Lott is blocking but never turned to hit his head on a swivel, and Chris caught him and broke his collarbone.
Ooh.
And Chris is calling me after the game saying, "How in the hell do you know Ronnie Lott?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, I hit him and he hurt his shoulder. We found out it was broken collarbone." And he said, "Ronnie's going off the field saying, 'Chris, if you weren't Butch's brother, I would kill you.'" so he said, "How in the hell do you know Ronnie Lott?" And I said, "Well, when I was a rookie, there were two guys that became my friends, and Ronnie Lott was one of them. Dr. Buss was a big time alumnus and booster for Southern Cal, and Marcus and Ronnie were always in the locker room. And as a rookie, I was always out with them because they knew the town, and we became really good friends. And in fact, they introduced me to Mr. DeBartolo. He was the first owner that I met in the NFL through those guys, and we used to go down to Tampa to his big benefit gala fundraiser. But I said, it goes back to my rookie year in LA. He said, "I can't believe this. Everywhere I go, somebody knows you." I said, "Well, can't be everywhere."
Did you expect anything different?
They do. My brothers are always like, even my sons now, like, Dad, how do you know him? How do you know them? Well, me and my dad didn't get along, but one of the things he did teach me was everywhere you go, keep a notebook and keep an address book. And then when I was coaching, I had a newsletter I would send out every quarter, just a Carter family newsletter to everyone to keep track with everyone.
Okay.
And that kind of worked well for me. People kind of remember when they'd get the newsletter for me. I wanted to be able to involve people that I had met into something that just wasn't about me as an athlete. So it was about my family, what was going on in their family. And it was just something nice that people never forgot. So when I run into them.
Right. Is that why you always carry a notebook of that?
You weren't supposed to tell people that. So, yes.
Hey, but nothing's changed with you. Nothing's changed.
Nothing is. So I'm gonna reach over here in my. I can show you.
What'd you put in there about me?
No, I don't put personal stuff, but I've got a notebook. I can actually show you. So these notebooks here are, if you can see, these are Indiana University practices.
Really?
Yes. So I've got my notes all the way back from 1977. So I've got every practice that I've been in, and then in business, I keep notebooks, and it just helps me keep track of what's on my mind. And
where did you learn that from?
It started at Indiana. I used to keep an index card. I couldn't sleep at night, so I would keep an index card and put it in my pocket. And then I'd number the things I needed to do that day. And then as I knocked them off, I'd circle them. And then whatever I didn't get circled carried over to the index card the next day. So then we go to practice, and Knight gives us these notebooks. And I just kept on from there. So my notebooks, I never let them stay in the locker room so that anyone could look at them.
Mm-hmm.
And they really became not a diary. They're really strategic for me. And, I may read an article and I'll cut the article out, or if I see something out and glue it into my notebook. If I hear a quote, right now I've got a book that I'm filling out for my sons. It's called, where's that book at? I got it for my birthday, but it's a diary from a father to his sons, and they've asked me to fill it out. It may take me a couple of years, but they've asked me as something to leave them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I know a couple guys who do audios,
right?
And what they do is, like, every month they send their son something. And that's something that I don't think I want to do with my boys.
Yeah, it's
to help them understand who I am, who I really am.
Yeah, the question is with the gap between us being fathers and sons. I don't sit down and talk with them about some of the stupid stuff I did when I was younger. The most important thing that I want them to know in the legacy is that they have a good name. And I wanted our family name to be a good name. And they can decide to do whatever they want to do. But I know that my boys that are in business appreciate going somewhere or calling me in the middle of the day saying, can you look over this contract? Do you know anyone in this part? And we work it through. So as I told them, like, in the Carter Library, I'm the oldest book, and you can do whatever you want, but just try to read the book or call and get a comment from the book before you go do what you need to do.
Exactly.
So,
hey, Butch, what was probably your aha moment in the NBA that you were like, you know what, I can play in this league?
we were playing the Celtics. I was playing with the Indiana Pacers, and we were playing the Celtics, and we had beat the Celtics, and then our coach decided to take the starters out and let the reserves play the fourth quarter. And of course, the Celtics came back and tied the game up, and the Indiana fans were booing. And it hurt me deeply because I'd never been booed by Indiana fans. It hurt me deeply probably because I was spoiled by playing at Indiana University and their support of us. I scored 14 points in the overtime and broke an NBA record, which I held for about 20 years. I used to be the points holder, and now I'm number 2. But I scored 14 points in a 5-minute overtime and basically spent the post game in the shower in tears because my desire to win and compete at the highest level is so personal.
Right.
And I don't like disappointing the people that have supported me, even though at times it happens. And but those 14 points, and then later that year, that kind of took it over the top. Later that year, I scored 40 points a couple times. If you go back and look at my NBA career, I was a very good shooter. I was an awesome mid-range shooter. Some guys shoot 50% in a game or a week or a month. I shot 50% for seasons. But that was the moment that I was taking no prisoners. That was the moment that I was smoking Dennis Johnson, and we both had the same agent. And ML Carr was standing on the sideline telling Dennis, and I told ML, put your shoes on, bring your blankety blank out here, and you're going to get the same treatment. And it was just one of those things that it was like a time bomb went off in me, and all the compete in me from all my youth, all my days in the playground, and Middletown came out in that game, and we beat the Celtics, but I did score 14 points, and that was the aha moment that I knew that I could really play in an environment that wanted to win.
Right. So if you could go back to your rookie year, no, I'll go back farther than that. If you could go back to your freshman year at Indiana, what would you tell that young man?
Are you sure you went to the right place?
Yeah, because that's it's all about levels.
Yeah.
And you reached a certain level, but in order to get to that next level, there are certain things you have to do in between.
Indiana actually was the right place for me academically, but basketball-wise, it was not the right place for me.
Mm-hmm. But Butch, you chose that.
That's correct.
Okay. Right. So what would you tell that young man?
The same thing. You're not going to quit.
Right.
There's no, you made this decision. You're going to ride it out. And, I would still say the same thing to him. Right. The issue is that I was naive about racism. I was naive about, I didn't want to go to Kentucky because I thought Kentucky was racist.
Right.
Little did I know, that Indiana was racist. But I loved being on that campus. And the people that I dealt with on campus were awesome. But, we were very clear with our parents or anyone coming over to see us, when you leave Indianapolis to get gas, you do not stop until you get to Bloomington.
Right.
You never, ever, ever stop in Martinsville. Right? We were told when we're leaving campus, wear your Letterman's jacket. I was just naive. And, but I would tell that young man that, you're not going to quit. You're not going to quit. You've got great people, Talaferros, the Alexanders, Dr. Ross at Financial Aid. And, I think my worst day in practice, I went to Dr. Ross's, and he was from Arkansas. He was the director of Financial Aid. And he cooked us dinner. And he said, hey, man, I got a couple of beers in the fridge. You want to share one with me? And I never, ever drank during the season. And heck, I think me and Dr. Ross finished 12 and went and got 6 more. And I was ready to go and practice the next day. So the opportunity that Indiana provided for my brothers, John, Chris, my sister Gail went to Indiana, for them to be on campus and be with me. My brothers would spend the summers there at Indiana. So, I was never surprised at Chris's success because he had already been in those environments.
Right.
Chris would be at practice and Knight be down there yelling and screaming, and Chris would be down the other end shooting the basketball. And no one gets to get away with that. John would work with Timmy Knight in a summer basketball camp selling slices of pizza for $3, and John is as wealthy as anyone in the family based off the entrepreneurial stuff. Mm-hmm. So, I would tell him, looking back, you still got to do it. I don't see how it would have turned out better going somewhere else for my family.
Right.
Indiana was the best place for my family, and I'm very proud of that. I'm not an Ohio State guy. I'm not a Michigan guy. I'm an Indiana guy, and I'm always going to be an Indiana guy.
Hey, Indiana's were pretty good this year in football.
They I really need to send a letter of thank you to the coach. It was awfully nice as an Indiana graduate to sit. An Indiana graduate that grew up in Ohio. My first grade Ohio State player was Bob Ferguson. Bob Ferguson was in class with my mom. And the Fergusons lived next door to the church we went to, Zion Baptist. But growing up in Ohio, in basketball, you would change the scrimmage around on Saturday so that you never, ever missed the Ohio State-Michigan game.
Right.
And but to go and be able to watch Indiana play really good football against Ohio State for the first time, in such a long time, was a great feeling. It was a great feeling.
But I got to do a shout out to our friend at Bell's House of Tobacco. Hey, if you want a great cigar, go to Bell's and get a great cigar. He's got a limited edition jazz collection, and get there quick because these guys are really good and you'll enjoy them. So there's the information, how you can contact Bell's. So remember, Bell's House Tobacco. And please let John know that you've seen this on this podcast. I just like to give John grief. So
yeah, Papa Bell is where we met at, and I call him Papa Bell. He's like the old wise man in the village. But man, them last cigars I got there were awesome, and I smoke good cigars.
Which one did you
do? But I called him today. He was busy, but yeah. Anyone that watches this podcast got to go to Bell's.
Yeah. Did you get the jazz collection?
I told him that's what I was calling him for him to ship some to me. So
you better hurry up, because when I went in there today, they were like, these people are going to go nuts because these things are about to go away.
Well, I told him I'd call him tonight because he was busy, and now I understand why. But
well, it's his birthday weekend.
Oh, okay. So, well, he's old enough to take the weekend. So.
Well, yeah, he does the whole weekend.
Right.
I think John's been celebrating all week. So.
Well, good for him.
Yeah. So we're going to do fire pits out in the back parking lot.
Okay.
So everybody can sit outside.
All right. Awesome.
It'll be 45 degrees tomorrow.
But, Thanks for telling me that.
Hey, Butch. Hey, wait a minute. You live in Canada. But remember this. You made that choice.
And if it wasn't for COVID, I'd be back. Well, he'd be done with exams. I would be there. So,
Butch, tell me the difference between living in Toronto and living in Ohio.
Canada never had slavery, so you don't have you get the benefit of the doubt here,
Right.
right? And you know my youngest son is a foreign exchange student at Moeller High School, and so it's the first time I've been back in Southwestern Ohio in a while, and the family that Josh has been staying with, the Pruitt family in Loveland, has been awesome. But the overall environment is I have to teach my 16-year-old son what he has to do if he gets stopped by the police.
Right.
And he's Canadian.
So that's the talk.
That's right, and that's the talk, and it's a talk I dread, because the issue is you hope it's never a problem, but all it takes is one time, and so in this environment that we currently live in, that's divisive. But in Canada, you don't start with the problem that started 250 years ago on a boat in Virginia.
Right.
So it's just, in my opinion, it's just a cleaner, more interactive environment. Like, I like to say hello to people. Hello, how are you? So, getting on the elevator, getting off, hi, good morning, how are you? Have a great day. And, if you said hello or how are you today in Cincinnati, they might look at you and say, what are you doing speaking to me?
You'll get the look.
Right.
Like,
and it's
really?
it's a real difference. And so I had just decided that I was at a point where then the girl that I was dating, and now my wife, and I didn't want to live like that anymore. I didn't want that friction in the rest of my life. And if I was man enough to be financially secure enough with her and what we were doing, that I would stay away from it. And I still love Southwestern Ohio. I still love the springs and falls. We totally enjoy Columbus, longtime member of New Albany Country Club. But the real difference, John, is that you feel it right away, is that there's a greater interaction amongst people as human beings than there is in the United States.
Right. It's a big and small mentality.
Well, I mean,
some people, huh?
I mean, it's whatever it is. There's a difference, and
Right.
And the other reason is, the way I operate, I never let anyone know who I am. I mean, my biggest friend antagonist is Tom Gregory at Montgomery Inn. And, he and I go at it. And most people look at us like, you guys hate each other. It's just our normal conversation, who's going to call the other one an asshole first.
Well, that's why you fit in so well at Bell's.
Right. So, but I've known Tom since I was 18 years old. The first time I think it was our high school principal, we had an undefeated team in '75, and he brought us down to Montgomery Inn for the first time for dinner. Guy Popwell, just a great man. And Tommy and I have been awesome ever since.
Right, but Tom's the same guy you met the first time.
Yes.
The second time, the third time, it doesn't change. Doesn't change at all.
That's correct. He is. I really appreciate Tom Gregory. I get along with Dean Evan, but I really appreciate Tom and being totally genuine. Doesn't carry any airs, and won't tolerate any. So it's nice to be
being a human being.
Right. I mean, because when you get to the point where we're at, you just want to be around good people.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not looking for the guy who's got the fanciest car, He thinks his house is worth a whole bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason why I stay up here in Canada, because I prefer that they not know.
Right. Well, that's why I like going incognito. But the only problem is when I stand up, they figure it out.
Yeah, because even when I met you, once you stood up, I said, "Oh man, I didn't know they made linemen like that."
You were like, "Wait a minute." I kind of thought he was big, but I had no idea he was that big.
Yeah. You even when you stood up, you surprised me. Said, "Oh, brother, man, well put together." So,
but just while it lasted 14 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You were sitting down when we met and you were talking, but when you stood up and said, "Oh, he's tall and wide," so
mm-hmm. and can run.
Well, I mean, I always my son asked me. He's a assistant coach in high school in Orlando, and he's like, "Dad, how can you really tell the athletes?" I said, "Well, I thought I knew what an athlete was, and I went to the Lakers, and none of them had any calves."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "What do you mean? None of them had any calves?" He said, "That's why you put that team together like that in Toronto." I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for an athlete that what I thought was a football body, big calves, big thighs. You can't the stress that's being put on you in 82 games, that wear and tear wears that big heavy load."
Right.
And when I look at that team, Magic Johnson had no calves. It was almost like it went from his ankle to his knee. Mm-hmm. Michael Cooper wore the long white socks, no calves. Kareem had the biggest calves on the team, but none of the other guys did. And it's just one of those anatomical things that I think gives longevity to great athletes in professional sports.
Right. Hey, so Butch, I want to ask you this question about what makes the NFL's Players Association so strong?
The NFL Players Association is strong because
No, I'm talking about the NBA.
NBA Players Association is so strong because at the end of the day, the new owners, are billionaires, and they're not trying to nickel and dime the players. They are the old NBA owners. He was an owner. He paid the lease, the building for 41 nights. The new NBA owner owns the building, owns all of the real estate around the building, hotels, owns the restaurants. It's a lot easier business model than the old model, and because they've made their money somewhere else, they're more interested in the entertainment for everyone, the fans, and they've just made it a really nice environment that they allow the NBA players to have a relationship with them that's closer to the relationships I have in Canada than what have been historical in America. Right. And the NBA Players Association, the NBA owners, really aren't divided by Republican and Democrat. They're divided by wrong is wrong and right is right, and that sense bonds them together. And there's no hard red line where you're on one side, I'm on the other. Mm-hmm. The issue at the end of the day is that the league has grown largely because they've been able to take an eraser to the red line.
Right, and they have, especially with the social injustices.
Correct.
That have been going on. I mean, they took a great stand, and they were the first league to take that stand.
Well, even to the point where they've committed to the $30 million a year for social injustice. Mm-hmm. So $300 million 10-year commitment by the owners. I can't announce it because the league hasn't announced it, but the guy who used to run my program has just been awarded the executive director of that program. So it's all good. I mean, it's just a really, really good environment, and the reciprocity that has come Like I have full insurance for my family. I only pay from the NBA Players Association. I only pay $500
Really? Is that a year?
a year.
Or a month?
A year.
Whoa.
Right?
Okay.
We
don't have any stuff like that.
That's what LeBron did.
NFL retirement plan.
Right? They just took a piece of what they were getting and said, let's put it into the players.
Well, that's what they're trying to do now. But who's bucking are the younger guys, which they don't understand.
Well, I mean, but the issue at the end of the day is that, the younger guys, they should let some of the older guys talk to the younger guys.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Because I agree.
The younger guys are going to be the older guys, and they're going to have the same issues.
Exactly.
Right? But, not having the pressure worrying about, health insurance. I'm fortunate enough I got health insurance on both sides of the border.
Right.
But it's a great relief. My son plays volleyball there with the Cincinnati Attack. That's been a great situation. He gets hurt. I take him over to see, the orthopedic. And, the guy asked me, insurance. Hey, yeah, here you go. United Healthcare to the rescue.
Mm-hmm. Great thing to have, but so many people don't have it though.
Yeah, it's one of the necessities as you move through life.
So, but let me ask you this, and this is in closing. What did you think about me when you first met me? When I was sitting there?
I thought you were a lot like myself. You're quiet and reserved. Mm-hmm. You're not one to lead with. You're not bombastic. Conversations are simple when you're going to have them, and you know which cigars you like. And
but you know what cigar I like? The one's in my hand.
Yeah, you called me a couple of times and told me when you're going out to the garage to have one, and so
I had to give you a hard time, Butch.
I thought you were very sure of who you were within yourself, and when you walked in a room with you and I have many a time, and everything that athlete talks about is I.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, no, it's I had to be impressed. I don't, John, I don't do these. I don't do podcasts. I don't do.
I know you don't, but that's why I appreciate you. And when I first met you, I was like, John Bell was. I walked out, and John Bell goes, "You need to get him on your podcast." And I was like, "No." I said, "Let me get to know him first, and then we'll see down the road." Yeah, but that's just how I am.
Well, I mean, I had decided when I was done coaching that I wasn't going to. I don't play golf outings. I don't, do radio. I don't, I just decided I wanted to stay to myself. And I also wanted to hold my voice so that in case I needed it for something really important, that it would have value. And I've seen guys when they come out run around and try to do everything and burn all their gasoline. So
you can't do everything because I think you stretch yourself so far. And then you're worth nothing.
Agreed.
You burn out.
Totally agree.
Burn out.
Totally agree.
Hey, Butch, thank you so much for doing the podcast. And I can't wait for you to come back to Cincinnati. So I definitely can't wait to play golf with you. I'm not that good, Butch. Unless you know right now.
Hey, Jordan. Dad is pulling my leg. Yeah. Jordan, I'm gonna let him get away with it because it's his show. But
I got an extra long putter. What grown man has an extra long putter?
I believe you, but if you're a foot from the cup, what difference does it make?
That's true. Hey, I just want to thank Butch Carter for joining the podcast, and definitely subscribe to the Offline Podcast. Show us some love by hitting those like buttons and subscribe to the podcast. Don't forget, hey, we love questions and comments. And please visit the offlinepodcast.com. Hey, it was a great day, and I appreciate Butch again. And stay safe out there because it's getting crazy.